I've been there too. I remember constantly asking myself why my savings weren't growing the way I thought they should, even when I was being careful. In this video, I'm going to break down the real reason you're not rich in your 20s, the money traps most people don't even realize they're stuck in, and the practical steps you can take today to turn it all around. By the end, you'll know exactly what's been holding you back and how to finally get ahead. Most people in their 20s struggle with lifestyle inflation without even realizing it, and that's the biggest silent problem eating away at their financial future. The moment someone gets a pay raise, a bonus, or even their very first paycheck, there's an almost automatic urge to upgrade everything around them. Instead of driving the same car, they decide it's time to finance a new one with higher monthly payments. Instead of living with a roommate or in a modest apartment, they move into a nicer place that eats up most of their income. Instead of cooking at home or keeping things simple, they start dining out more often, buying name brand clothes, indulging in gadgets or trips because they feel like they deserve it after working hard. The problem is that this creates a cycle where every increase in income is matched or even outpaced by an increase in expenses, leaving nothing left to save or invest. What feels like a reward in the moment quickly becomes a financial burden because once those upgraded habits set in, it's extremely hard to scale back without feeling like you're depriving yourself. The trap is that most people confuse looking successful with actually building success, and lifestyle inflation feeds that illusion. The solution lies in recognizing this behavioral pattern early and creating intentional systems to combat it. Instead of upgrading your lifestyle every time you get a raise, you can commit to upgrading your savings and investments first. For example, let's say you receive a 10% raise at work. Instead of letting that extra income disappear into a nicer apartment or eating out 5 times a week, allocate at least half of it directly into a high-yield savings account, an index fund, or toward paying off any high-interest debt. By automating this process, setting up automatic transfers the day your paycheck hits, you remove the temptation of spending what you don't actually see. Another powerful tactic is to define your lifestyle baseline early and stick to it for as long as possible, even as your income grows. If you're comfortable spending $2,000 a month, keep your living expenses around that amount while channeling the rest into wealth-building activities. Over time, the gap between your earnings and expenses widens, and that's where real financial freedom comes from. A strong example of this can be seen in the lives of people who appear wealthy, but are actually broke compared to those who quietly build wealth by resisting lifestyle inflation. Imagine 2 friends in their 20s. One gets a job paying $60 a year and decides to live in a trendy downtown apartment for $1,800 a month, leases a new car at $400 a month, and spends freely on entertainment and dining out. The other earns the same amount but chooses to live in a modest funds thousand apartment, drives a used car that's already paid off, and cooks at home most of the week. The first person may look more successful from the outside, but after a year, they've saved little to nothing and may even have credit card debt. The second person, meanwhile, has managed to save thousands, invest in index funds, and build an emergency fund. Fast forward 5 years, the spender has nothing to show despite higher earnings, while the saver has a solid investment portfolio and the financial cushion to take risks, start a business, or buy property. That gap, created simply by resisting lifestyle inflation, becomes the dividing line between struggling financially and getting rich in your 20s and beyond. One of the most damaging problems people in their 20s face is high interest debt, especially credit card balances and personal loans. It usually starts small, maybe putting a few dinners, clothes, or electronics on a credit card with the thought of paying it off later. But when the balance isn't cleared in full, interest begins to pile up at rates that can be as high as 20% or more. At first, the monthly minimum payment seems manageable, but most of that money is only covering interest, not the principal. This means that what began as a $100,000 purchase can balloon into thousands over time. Many young adults underestimate how quickly this cycle snowballs, and they justify it by thinking they'll earn more later or that everyone else is doing the same thing. The real issue is that every dollar going toward paying interest is a dollar that can't be saved or invested, essentially locking people into a financial treadmill where they work harder but never move forward. Instead of building wealth, they're paying banks to borrow money they didn't actually need to spend in the first place. The solution to this problem is twofold: prevention and elimination. Prevention starts with building the discipline to avoid using credit cards as a way to fund lifestyle purchases. If the money isn't in your account, the answer should be not yet, rather than swiping a card and worrying about it later. For those who already have credit card debt, the focus has to be on aggressive repayment strategies. 2 of the most effective methods are the avalanche and the snowball approach. With the avalanche method, you pay off debts starting with the highest interest rate first, which saves the most money in the long run. With the snowball method, you pay off the smallest balances first, which creates momentum and motivation as you see debts disappearing quickly. Another key solution is to avoid adding new debt while paying off old debt. That might mean putting the credit card away, switching to cash or debit for everyday expenses, and tightening up a budget so that extra funds can be directed toward repayments. Additionally, negotiating with lenders or transferring balances to lower interest accounts can buy some breathing room Though these tactics only work if spending habits change at the same time. For example, consider someone making $3,000 in a month who carries a $5,000 credit card balance at 20% interest. If they only make minimum payments of $125, it would take them more than 20 years to pay it off, and they'd end up spending over $10,000 just in interest. Now, if that same person commits to the avalanche method and dedicates $500 a month toward the debt while maintaining minimum payments on any other loans, they could wipe out that $5,000 in about a year and save thousands in future interest payments. The difference between letting debt linger and attacking it head on is the difference between being financially stuck and freeing up cash flow for investing, saving, or pursuing bigger opportunities. Another example can be seen in people who avoid debt entirely in their 20s by living frugally, using credit cards only for rewards, and paying the balance in full every month. While their peers are trapped in cycles of paying interest, they are using that same money to invest in index funds, build emergency savings, or start side hustles. That contrast grows sharper with time, because the person weighed down by high-interest debt is forced to play catch-up while the one who avoided or eliminated it early has already begun compounding wealth. High-interest debt doesn't just slow financial progress, it actively works against it, making it nearly impossible to get ahead until it's under control. One of the most common reasons people in their 20s fail to build wealth is because they don't have a clear financial plan, and this lack of direction creates chaos in their money habits. Without a plan, income flows in and out with no accountability, and expenses often grow in ways that people don't even notice until they're already stuck living paycheck to paycheck. It's easy to assume that earning more money will eventually fix everything, but the truth is that higher income without structure only magnifies poor financial habits. When there's no written budget or specific goals, small leaks like daily coffee runs, online subscriptions, or impulse purchases add up to hundreds of dollars each month. Over time, those habits steal away the very money that could have gone into savings, investments, or paying down debt. The problem isn't just the lack of a spreadsheet or budgeting app, it's the lack of intentionality. Most young adults know they should save or invest, but never define how much, when, or for what purpose, and that vagueness is exactly what keeps them from making real progress. Without a plan, money controls them instead of the other way around. The solution is to treat money management with the same seriousness as any career or personal goal by creating a clear financial roadmap. This starts with tracking every dollar coming in and going out. For many, that means writing down all fixed expenses like rent, utilities, and transportation, and then comparing those to variable costs like food, entertainment, and shopping. Once everything is laid out, a realistic budget can be built, one that allocates money toward necessities, savings, and investments before lifestyle spending. A proven system many people use is the 50-30-20 rule. 50% of income toward needs, 30% toward wants, and 20% toward savings and debt repayment. But even this can be adjusted depending on goals. For example, someone aiming for early financial independence might cut wants down to 15% and raise savings to 35%. Beyond the numbers, the key is setting specific, measurable goals, such as save $10 for an emergency fund in 2 years, or invest $500 every month into an index fund. These targets create clarity and accountability, and they give every dollar a job. Another powerful tactic is automating finances so that savings and investments are withdrawn as soon as a paycheck arrives, making it much harder to fall back into overspending. Having a clear plan doesn't mean eliminating all fun or spontaneity. It simply means making choices that align with long-term goals, instead of reacting impulsively in the moment. A good example of this is the difference between two young professionals who both earn $4,000 a month. The first doesn't track their expenses, pays bills as they come, and spends whatever's left on entertainment, clothes, and eating out. They believe they'll figure it out later, but by the end of each month, they're left with almost nothing saved. The second creates a budget that sets aside first $200 for rent, $300 for utilities, $400 for transportation, $600 for food and entertainment, and directs the others $1,000 straight into savings and investments. Even though both earn the same amount, the second person builds an emergency fund, starts investing early, and has money available for opportunities. Over the course of 5 years, the first person is still living paycheck to paycheck, while the second has tens of thousands of dollars growing in investments. Another example can be seen in students who start with small income streams, but create a habit of planning from day one. Even with part-time jobs or internships, they dedicate a set percentage of their income towards savings. By treating planning as non-negotiable, they enter their late 20s with financial discipline that puts them years ahead of their peers. The difference isn't about who made more money. It's about who made a plan and stuck with it, proving that wealth in your 20s is less about luck and more about structure. Another major reason many people in their 20s fail to build wealth is because they ignore investing early. And by doing so, they lose out on the single most powerful financial tool available: compound growth. The problem is that investing feels intimidating, confusing, and often unnecessary when you're young. Many people think they don't make enough to start, that they'll catch up later once they're earning more, or that investing is only for people who already have thousands saved. This mindset causes years of delay, and those early years are the most valuable because time is what makes compounding work. A dollar invested at 22 has decades to grow, while that same dollar invested at 32 or 35 has already lost a huge portion of its potential. The longer someone waits, the harder it becomes to reach the same financial milestones, and the more pressure they feel to save massive amounts later in life just to catch up. By ignoring investing early, young adults are not just missing an opportunity, they're actively putting themselves behind because inflation continues eroding the value of money while they keep it sitting idle in checking accounts. The solution to this problem is to shift the mindset from waiting for the right time to starting with whatever amount is possible right now, even if it's small. The truth is, investing doesn't require thousands of dollars up front. Thanks to index funds, ETFs, and fractional shares, you can start with as little as $20 or $50. The key is consistency, not size. By contributing regularly every month, even small amounts, you create a habit that scales as your income grows. Automating contributions is one of the simplest ways to ensure this happens. For example, setting up an automatic transfer of $100 into an index fund every time a paycheck arrives takes decision, making out of the equation and builds momentum. Another important part of the solution is education. Learning the basics of how investing works, the difference between stocks, bonds, and funds, and understanding that long-term investing is not about gambling but about patience and time in the market. Even just reading a beginner-friendly book or following credible financial educators can remove the fear that keeps so many people from starting. It's also helpful to set tangible goals, like aiming to build a retirement fund of $1 million by age 60, and then reverse engineering how much needs to be invested each month to get there. With these strategies, investing becomes approachable, less scary, and more clearly connected to real-life benefits. For example, imagine two friends who both have $200 a month they could save. The first puts it into a savings account earning 1% interest, while the second invested into a broad market index fund earning an average of 8% annually. After 10 years, the first friend has about $26,000, while the second has closer to $36,000. Fast forward to 30 years, the saver has around $83,000, but the investor has over $270,000. That's the power of starting early and letting compound interest do the heavy lifting. Another example is someone who begins investing just $100 a month at age 22. By 32, they've put in $12,000, but their account could already be worth around $18,000 or more depending on market performance. Meanwhile, someone who waits until 32 and then invests $100 a month will have put in the same on $12,000 by 42, but their account might only be worth $15,000. The first person not only has more money, but also has an additional decade of growth that continues to multiply year after year. This is why the biggest wealth builders often stress the phrase, time in the market beats timing the market. Waiting until later might feel safer, but in reality, it costs more in lost opportunity than most people realize. Ignoring investing early isn't just a missed chance, it's the single greatest financial setback young people can make in their 20s. A big problem holding people back in their 20s is the tendency to chase quick money, instead of focusing on building real, sustainable skills that create long-term wealth. It's easy to get caught up in the hype of side hustles that promise fast cash, trading schemes that guarantee overnight profits, or risky ventures that seem like shortcuts to success. Social media makes this worse by constantly showcasing stories of people striking it rich through cryptocurrency flips, dropshipping, or day trading. The problem is that most of these quick money methods are built on unstable foundations, and even when they work for a short time, they don't last. People waste not just money, but also valuable years chasing the next hot trend instead of developing marketable skills that would consistently increase their earning power. When these quick money attempts inevitably collapse, they're left starting from scratch, often with less money and more frustration than before. The real danger isn't just losing money. It's losing time that could have been invested in building assets that grow and careers that pay off steadily. The solution is to flip the mindset from chasing instant gratification to focusing on skill building and long-term growth. Instead of asking, how can I make money fast? The better question is, what skill or habit can I develop now that will pay me for the rest of my life? Learning valuable skills, whether in coding, sales, marketing, finance, communication, or leadership, provides leverage that quick hustles can't match. Skills compound over time in the same way investments do, and they increase your ability to earn more in almost any environment. This doesn't mean avoiding side hustles altogether, but it means being strategic about which ones you pursue. For example, starting a freelance service in graphic design or writing not only provides extra income, but also builds a skill set that can lead to bigger opportunities later. Similarly, focusing on learning how to manage money, build credit, or invest wisely are skills that will directly increase your net worth over decades. To put it simply, the goal should be planting seeds that grow into trees rather than chasing fireworks that burn out quickly. By focusing on long-term value creation instead of short-term hype, you position yourself to build wealth that lasts. For example, imagine two young adults with the same amount of free time after work. One spends their nights chasing trends like trying to flip sneakers, jumping from one get-rich-quick crypto token to the next and signing up for questionable online money-making schemes. Sometimes they make a little, but most of the time they break even or lose, and after 2 years, they have nothing sustainable to show for their efforts. The other person uses that same time to learn digital marketing through free resources, practices building websites for friends, and slowly builds a portfolio. Within 2 years, they have the ability to freelance on platforms like Upwork or Fiverr, bringing in consistent side income. And within 5 years, they can leverage those skills into a higher, paying career or even start their own agency. The first person chases money but never builds stability. The second person builds skills that generate compounding value. Another clear example is in investing habits. Someone who spends their 20s trying to find the next hot stock might make some lucky wins, but most of the time they underperform the market and waste countless hours stressing over it. Meanwhile, someone who steadily invests in broad index funds and uses their time to advance their career skills ends up far ahead financially, because their money grows passively while their earning power grows actively. The lesson is simple. Quick money can look exciting, but it almost always fades. Skills and long-term strategies might feel slower, but they create the foundation for wealth that keeps growing long after the trend chasers burn out. Another critical issue stopping people in their 20s from building wealth is the lack of financial education. Most schools don't teach practical money management, and many families avoid serious conversations about personal finance, so young adults are left to figure it out on their own. Without guidance, it's easy to fall into traps like overspending on credit cards, taking out loans without understanding interest rates, or neglecting savings because the importance of it isn't clear. The problem is that money mistakes compound just as much as investments do. A single bad decision, like carrying credit card debt for years or missing out on investing in your early 20s, can cost tens of thousands of dollars down the line. This lack of knowledge also leads to fear and avoidance. People think managing money is too complicated, so they delay learning about budgeting, investing, and credit until it's too late. The lack of financial education creates a cycle where young adults repeat the same mistakes their peers are making, and without intervention, they keep working hard but never feel like they're getting ahead. The solution is to take ownership of financial education and make learning about money a priority. Unlike school subjects that may never be used again, financial literacy is a lifelong skill that directly impacts freedom and opportunities. The good news is that financial education has never been more accessible. There are books, podcasts, YouTube channels, online courses, and communities all dedicated to teaching the basics of saving, investing, budgeting, and building wealth. Even dedicating 30 minutes a day to learning about money can completely change someone's financial trajectory. A practical approach is to start with the basics. Understanding how to create and stick to a budget, the importance of building an emergency fund, how compound interest works, and the role of credit scores. Once the foundation is built, it's easier to move into more advanced topics like investing in index funds, understanding retirement accounts, or building passive income streams. Another part of the solution is applying knowledge immediately instead of just consuming it. Reading about investing won't help unless you actually open a brokerage account and start. Watching videos about budgeting won't make a difference unless you track your expenses and make adjustments. By learning and taking small actions consistently, financial education becomes practical and empowering instead of overwhelming. For example, consider two people who both graduate from college with entry-level jobs. The first doesn't prioritize financial education, so they live without a budget, carry a balance on their credit card, and wait years before starting to invest. By 30, they're still living paycheck to paycheck, burdened with debt, and feeling stressed about money. The second person decides early on to self-educate. They read books like The Millionaire Next Door, follow financial educators online, and learn how to budget using a simple app. They start saving $200 a month into an index fund even when their income is modest. By applying this knowledge, they avoid credit card debt, build a small emergency fund, and grow their investments consistently. By 30, they may not be rich yet, but they have tens of thousands saved, zero debt, and the confidence to make smarter financial decisions moving forward. Another example is someone who takes the time to learn about how credit scores work. While their peers are ignoring bills and hurting their credit, they pay on time, keep balances low, and build a strong credit history. This allows them to qualify for lower interest rates when buying a car or house, saving thousands of dollars that can instead go into investments. The difference between the person who learns about money early and the one who ignores it is night and day. Financial education is not about being perfect or knowing everything. It's about giving yourself the knowledge and tools to make decisions that move you forward instead of holding you back. So let's recap what we covered. The real reason you're not rich in your 20s often comes down to habits, not income. Lifestyle inflation drains your raises before you can save them. High interest debt keeps you stuck on a financial treadmill. A lack of a clear financial plan leaves you vulnerable to overspending. Ignoring investing early robs you of compounding power. Chasing quick money distracts you from building real skills that last. And finally, not prioritizing financial education keeps you repeating the same mistakes. Each of these on its own can hold you back, but together they create a cycle that keeps most people broke. The good news is that by recognizing these traps, you can start shifting your mindset and building wealth today. If you found this helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below sharing which trap you've fallen into. And don't miss the next video, 5 habits that will make you a millionaire before 30.